So the Daily Beast here with a report about how U.S. intelligence agencies, referred to, of course, by some as the deep state, have been retaliating against whistleblowers who often call out, of course, waste, fraud, and abuse inside of the agency and end up being, like I said, retaliated against. Now, this report also shows how these agencies, the CIA, FBI, NSA, etc., have been bearing an investigation about those abuses and about this retaliation. So let's break it down here. Now, this is according to Kevin Polson, who wrote for the Daily Beast. And he reports that the nation's top intelligence watchdog had recently put the brakes on a report last year that uncovered whistleblower reprisal issues within the American spy agencies. Now, the move concealed the finding that the agencies, including the CIA and the NSA, were failing to protect intelligence workers who report waste, fraud, and abuse or criminality up the chain of command. Now, you listen to this and you think, oh, intelligence agencies not being accountable to the law? Unthinkable. Now, of course, I have a big problem with some of our intelligence agencies and what they're doing or what they have traditionally done. The fact that the NSA basically has spy tools, spying in on Americans, things like that. The FBI, of course, traditionally targeting the left-wing groups and things like that. And, of course, whistleblowers going after people like Chelsea Manning and Edward Snowden. Big problems, right? So this doesn't surprise me in the least. Now, let me get into more of the details. Now, the investigators looked into 190 cases of alleged reprisal within 6 agencies and discovered a not-so-shocking pattern. In only one case out of the 190 did the agencies find in favor of the whistleblower, and in that case took 742 days to complete. Other cases remained open longer. The findings were remarkably consistent. They said over and over again the intelligence inspectors ruled that the agency was right and the whistleblower was, of course, always wrong. Wow, big surprise. No, we're right, they're wrong, of course. Move on, not shocking. Now, this report followed a near 6-month-long inspection run out of the Intelligence Community Inspector General's office. Now, before its completion for this report, the new acting head of office, Wayne Stone, decided, you know what, I don't like this report. It is not favorable enough. I'm going to pull the plug. In fact, Polson writes, Stone shut down the whistleblowing inspection just days after taking over for Charles McCullough III, who'd served as the Intelligence Community's Inspector General from the day the office was founded in 2010 until his retirement in March of last year. Now, why did he do that? Well, he claims that's a pretty good reason. One of the inspectors, they said, was a whistleblower that was suing the CIA. Now, the man who is suing the CIA went by the alias of James Pars. Now, Pars had served in war zones in Iraq and Afghanistan, with South America, and also even in Baghdad and other places. This guy was a career agent, right? He's seen a lot of things, been a lot of places. In fact, one former intelligence colleague says of his biography, quote, he understands what happens in the field. He's been in the mud and the blood. So, look, Pars has served the CIA for, decades and never really had a beef with him, right? They said that Pars regrets little save for the long stints away from his wife and young daughter. So that's important context because it shows that he's not going after the agency for no reason. There is a good reason he's decided to go after the agency. And it says, on 2 occasions, he had clashed with a superior and had felt mistreated by the CIA's bureaucracy going forward. Now, one of the issues is documented here where he was serving at Bagram Air Base. Now, at Bagram, Pars allegedly had issues with his new boss, the chief of the base, who he believed was running a command like a college dormitory. As Pars later wrote in a court filing, she allegedly adopted favorites within her staff and placed her personal needs of cooking, baking, socializing, entertainment, exercise, and shopping above the needs of the mission, often going days and sometimes more than a week without meeting with key personnel. Now, Parr's most serious complaint charged that the base chief frequently led her personnel on unnecessary errands, food, shopping, or to the gym that took them through parts of the base hit frequently by Taliban rocket fire. One such excursion allegedly crossed a flight ramp that was hit by a rocket just 10 minutes later. Following procedure, Parrs decided to send his concern up the chain of command. Word of his complaint got back down to the base chief, who allegedly retaliated on a scale that ranged from petty, assigning him to duty as a compound noise monitor, to the serious writing a critical performance review of Parrs, faulting him for poor communication skills and lack of leadership. Soon after, the CIA station chief in Afghanistan issued a short-of-tour cable, reporting that Parrs no longer had the confidence of its chief of base. The cable cut short Parr's one-year detail after only 4 months, and sent him home to Virginia with a reduction of pay. Upon his return, Parrs spent months applying for new CIA assignments that would fit his experience and qualifications, but with the poor performance review and short-of-tour cable on his record, he was rejected again and again. His finances went badly, and of course that led to his family life going badly. His wife left the country, taking his daughter with her. He was a Cuban-born American. And Parrs appealed to the Equal Employment Opportunity Office, worked through the CIA bureaucracy to try to clear his name, but finally, failing all that, he lodged a whistleblower reprisal complaint in April of 2015. Now, this seems very dramatic, more of a he said, she said kind of thing, a lot of alleged complaints going on here. Nonetheless, he claims, no, I'm a whistleblower. I didn't like the way that she was running her base. She went after me for it. So I had the right to put in that complaint. I had the right to be protected. Well, the problem is they didn't have that protection. Now, to what do I refer? What kind of protection? Well, back in 2012, President Obama signed a policy directive called the PPD-19. Now, that prohibits intelligence agencies from punishing workers who report abuses through approved government channels. Now, under Trump, that directive still stands. Now, among other things, PPD-19 requires the Office of Inspector General at each agency to carry out an investigation when a worker files a complaint about, of course, retaliation to lawful whistleblowing. If, after investigating, the OIG finds no evidence of reprisal, the whistleblower can appeal up to the intelligence agency, Community Inspector General, who can choose to impanel a 3-person appellate board comprised of AGs from other agencies to go and see whether or not they confirm or affirm or disagree with the OIG's decision. Now, in this case, they didn't quite get to that. His case is still pending. But there are other cases. There were enough cases of reprisal for them to put together an investigative unit. Now, this investigative unit had 6 different investigators. Now, they found that these other investigations into reprisal never actually happened. One of the conclusions of this suppressed inspection from those investigators found that basically none of these investigations actually happened. Quote, absent a review process which adheres to mandated legal standards for reprisal investigations, the protections remain weak, with minimal chance for a complainant to have a reprisal complaint substantiated. From the data, it appears that PPD-19 has had no impact on agency reprisal investigations and or protections from complainants making protected disclosures. So the protections are there, but nobody follows them. And of course, nobody is holding these agencies accountable for them going after whistleblowers. Again, color me surprised, right? Now, Rob Johnson, former director of ICIG under McCullough, confirmed the findings in an interview with the Daily Beast, attributing to some of the problems to the expected growing pains of implementing a new policy that I don't necessarily buy. But, hey, maybe it had something to do with it, the fact that maybe it took so long for some of these complaints to get recognized. But then there are a lot of them. Look, you can't explain away that the fact that 190 of these complaints, out of that, only one of them was actually ruled on the side of the complainant. They can't all be bad. They can't all be without merit. From what it sounds like, the Bagram base, again, whether you believe his account or not, he is a CIA operative after all. Look, that seems like a situation where there was definite mismanagement. And again, it is your duty to report that mismanagement to make sure that this actually runs the way that it's supposed to. Now, let me go back to Johnson here. There's another quote. He said that we saw a couple of cases from some offices that showed that they didn't speak to witnesses that they should have, and that the cases had languished. And we saw cases where they took no action, whether it was systemic or not. Well, that's why we were doing the inspection. The inspectors found also endless obstacles to effective whistleblower protection within the spy agencies, according to documents from the proof. And there was no clear standard for conducting reprisal investigations. Even the standard of proof, probable cause, preponderance of evidence, was murky to the OIGs. The investigation manuals at most agencies also gave retaliatory probes only cursory attention. There were mixed incentives. The primary metric for weighing an OIG's effectiveness was how much the office saved taxpayers through its waste, fraud, and abuse investigations, and a successful whistleblower claim could cost the government money and in the form of back wages or attorney's fees. So all of that led to situations and these reprisal cases being ignored because, hey man, look, these are time consuming and they're expensive. We're not interested. And look, hey, look, we might even have a problem proving a connection between this performance review, for example, that was bad, reduced security clearance, or a mispromotion to the prior whistleblowing activities. So they had a hard time trying to prove correlation between the two things. So that's why they're doing that's why they did the investigation. That's why they did the inspection. Now, as they were going to release their official report, earmarked for Donald Trump's newly confirmed director of national intelligence, that's a man named Daniel Coates, they decided, no, we're going to crush it. We're going to squash this thing. You know why? Because it's incredibly unfavorable to us. What was in this report? In early April, rumors of Parr's lawsuit reached the IGIC's office. Under questioning, Parr's acknowledged that he was the pseudonymous plaintiff in the case. So what does that have to do with them crushing this inspection? Well, Parr's was one of the inspectors that was named to be on this. So there were 6 inspectors. Parr's was one of them. Parr's is suing the CIA over this. So they said, oh, conflict of interest. Let's get rid of him. Let's get rid of him. And let's also bury this report. Bury it. Now, you could agree that removing him from this investigation was fair because maybe you have a conflict of interest. But again, he was only one of 6 investigators who came up with the same conclusion. They all found evidence of retaliation against whistleblowers and the fact that the agency was doing very, very little to address these concerns. They can't all be wrong. But of course, because of this, and likely because it gave them an excuse, Stone ordered the entire inspection halted, according to sources for the agency. Data, files, memos, charts, and graphs were all locked down, and work on the final report stopped completely. And the official investigation was that the inspection had been tainted by Parr's involvement. Now, Johnson, going back to him, he has a quote. He said, "There's virtually nothing a single inspector could do to contaminate a report that relies heavily on verifiable numbers." He said, "Everything has to be backed up with data. There's not a lot of opinion on these reports." Some former ICIG officials believe that Stone used the Parr's affair as a pretext to kill an inspection that was producing inconvenient results. Quote, "Parr's was told to cease and desist, and they walked him out the door and buried the program," says one former ICIG official who worked with Parr's. Quote, "They pulled the carpet out from under him because they wanted an excuse to quash the report." Now take that for what you will. But I believe that 100% they crushed this report because they didn't want to be held accountable. Now this is a problem That is a part of every large agency that operates without proper accountability. What we need is to rein in these agencies. They have been operating too long without proper oversight. I'm not saying the president. I'm not saying what kind of accountability or oversight that I'm looking for. That's for people who are way smarter than me to figure out. But we got to do something. These agencies being able to go and crush these independent inspections, and to whether or not they're going after whistleblowers for calling things out, for calling out abuses of the chain of command, and doing it the way that they all say that they're supposed to, and then ruining these people's lives. It's not the way that we should be conducting business. It is the internal corruption inside of these agencies that is the huge problem. Now, what we need, as I said, more accountability. Now, you think Donald Trump would jump at that, right? Because he's all over the deep state. It's like, oh, the deep state, they're after me, I hate them. Well, this would be a great time and reason to go and do more oversight. I'm not saying take control. What I'm saying is institute some independent oversight of these agencies so that maybe we can actually get some accountability. But of course, he's not going to do that. All he's done is, of course, push back against everything Russia, which of course won't solve this problem inside of our intelligence agencies. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.